Hello everyone, and welcome to the second video in the chess tutorial series. In this video, we'll be setting up the piece parent and creating the piece spawning logic on the chessboard. Let's get started with the piece parent. So first, we're going to create a new folder inside of our game folder. Name this pieces. Inside of here, we're going to right click, create a new blueprint class, actor. We're going to name this BP piece parent. Inside of our piece parent, we're just going to add a static mesh. And then let's just go ahead and set this to our rook. Okay. And then as you can tell, it is super small, so let's go ahead and scale it up. All right, that looks about right. Let's go ahead and drag it out here. Maybe a little bit smaller. We're just going to scale it by 50. Go ahead and lock that. Scale it at 50. That looks a little better. And then let's just make sure that this is centered in the middle. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create the dynamic material for our piece. So to do that, we need to go to our event graph and then find our begin play. And on begin play, we are going to get our static mesh, create dynamic material instance. Okay. And then we're going to select the source material as our parent stone. And then we're going to set a reference right here. So we can just set this to dynamic material ref. Okay. Now we can go ahead and save, compile. And the next thing that we're going to do inside of our piece parent is create our init function, which will set the values for our team and some other things. So let's go ahead and create a new function. Name it init. And then inside of init, we're going to set a couple of variables, but we need to make them first. So let's just set this to team. We have our team enum. And then we want a position, which is just going to be a string. And the next thing that we want is a board reference. So let's just grab a new variable, name it board reference. And then let's find our chessboard, get an object reference, then we can go ahead and save. Okay. So now that we have these, let's just go ahead and drag them into our init function. There we go. And then we're going to get our dynamic material reference. And we're going to get an isValid. And if our material reference is valid, then we are going to set texture parameter value. And what this is going to be doing is selecting which texture material we want based on what team it is. Okay, so for the white team, we actually want to create, actually we're just going to select our stone block light, and then the black team, stone block dark. Okay. And then we just want to make sure this is called stone texture. That's the same parameter value that we made inside of our material. And I believe that's it for this function. So we can just close out of this now. And we're going to right click, create a new blueprint class. Or sorry, this is a child blueprint class now. Now we're going to name this BP rook. Actually, we'll do BP knight. I'm just going to show you how to go through one of these, and then you can do the rest with the knight, king, queen, rook, and pawn. But basically what we're going to do is we're just going to go in each of these. We're going to select the correct mesh, and then we're just going to make sure that it's lined up. We can save, compile that, and that's basically all you're doing for each one of these. Now that we've created all of our pieces, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next part, which is actually spawning all of the pieces on the board. But before we do that, we actually need to make a couple of functions on the board base. And what we're going to be doing is we are creating a couple functions to grab the position of each block. So let's just open up our chessboard, and then let's create a new function. And the function that we're creating is going to be called findBlockLetter. So let's just do findBlockLetter. And then the input is going to be an object reference. So we can just get object. There we go. Name the input block. Get object name. And then we're going to do a right chop. Count 6. And a left chop. Count 1. And this is the value that we're going to be returning. So basically all this is doing is getting the name, chopping out the block underscore and the 4, and then returning this A. And that'll be helpful down the line. So let's just go ahead and create a new output. There we go. Let's delete that one. Type in letter there. And let's make this pure. Okay, we can save and compile. Now what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this, and we're going to get findBlockNumber. And for findBlockNumber, basically what we're going to do is we're just going to take out this left chop here, make this count 7, and then we're going to rename this to number. Okay, and the last thing is just going to be findBlockNumber and letter. And what that's going to do is just going to right chop 6. Okay. Now we have all of our functions. We can go ahead and save and compile. And we're going to move on to the next part, which is actually spawning the pieces. So first, let's go ahead and do this. Let's make it a new category. Let's name this string handling. And then let's make sure our find block functions are in there. Okay. Let's create a new function. Let's go ahead and name this spawn piece. And inside of spawn piece, we are going to be, move over here a little bit. Inside of spawn piece, we need a couple of things. We need a class input. So we can just get a BP piece parent and then class reference. Name this class. We need a team value. This is going to be our team enum. And then we need a block reference, which will be an object. So just get object reference. There we go. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are going to spawn actor from class. Okay, we're going to get a block. Going to get actor, get world. Okay, so we actually need to change this to a static mesh component. There we go. Now we can get world location. And then on our spawn transform, we're going to make transform. And then we'll just plug in this location here. Okay. Then we can plug in our class. And then from here, what we're going to do is we are going to save and compile. And we actually want to create a new variable over here in our variables tab. And this is going to be a reference to all of our pieces that we've spawned. So let's just name this all pieces. And what all pieces is going to be is it will be a map of strings. So we're just going to get a string variable, set this to a map. Okay. And then the key is going to be a piece parent object reference. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add. We can plug that in right here. And then we can go ahead and reroute this. And then we can find block number and letter. And that will give the position to our all pieces array. So after we've done that, now we're going to call our init function. And we can just grab a board reference and we'll make this self and put the position as this. And then we need to grab our team enum for the team value. Okay. So last thing that we're going to do is we just want to return a reference to the piece. So we can just drag this over here and then get the return value from our spawn, plug it in that, and name this piece reference. Okay, now we can hook this up right here. And that is our spawn piece function. We can go ahead and save and compile that now. And the next thing that we're going to do is create init pieces. And what init pieces is going to do is it's going to actually spawn the pieces on the correct tile. So let's go ahead and make this new function, init pieces. And what init pieces is going to do is, first off, we need a sequence. So let's just go ahead and grab that. Okay. And first, we're going to go ahead and spawn the pawns. So we want get components by tag. Ooh, one more thing we forgot to do, actually. So let's select all of our blocks, go down here to component tags, and then let's add a tag called blocks. Okay. And then we can add that to our tag variable right here, and that will grab all of our blocks. So we can do for each. Plug that in right there. And we want to find block letter. We're going to be spawning the pawns first. So if it's in either B or G, we're going to spawn pawns. So we can go ahead and equal B or G. Make sure these are hooked up. So if the block position is equal to B or G, what we're going to do is we're going to spawn piece. So spawn, let's see, let's just drag it out here. So true. And then the same for down here on true. Okay, and the block. Looks like we need to change something really quick. Just make sure that our static mesh component is the component that we're grabbing. And let's do the for each loop again. Hook that up. Now we should be able to plug it in. There we go. Okay. So let's just make sure that the teams are set correctly. So if we are in G, we want to spawn the black team. If we are in B, we want to spawn white. Okay, and then we can just go ahead and pawn. Okay, and pawn again. All right. And now we can actually go ahead and test this, I believe. So let's just go to the event graph, and then after we get our player reference, let's init pieces. Save and compile. And when we press play, we should have pawns on either side on both teams. Now, as you can tell, we have our white team over here, and then our black team on the other side. So it's working perfectly. Okay, let's go ahead and finish up init pieces. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add the logic for our rooks. So let's go ahead and reroute. Okay, and then we are going to, for each, we're going to grab blocks H8 and A8, and then H1 and A1. Okay. Now we can just go ahead and make, not that. We're just going to make array. Okay. And then we'll plug both of these values in. Hook it up to our for each loop. And then we can go ahead and move this around a little bit. There we go. Okay, so for the loop body, we're going to spawn piece, make sure it's our rook. Can actually block that out. Okay. So for H, we're going to put the black team, and for the A's, we're going to put the white team. So next what we're going to do is we're basically just going to copy this. On completed, we'll run it. Okay, and then we'll plug in these values. All right, so that is our rook. And then we're going to do our knight. So let's go ahead and add a pin. And then we can basically take all of this and just copy it. Okay. And then we can actually do that for the bishop as well. So let's just copy that. Okay. And now we are going to, let's see, we have our H and A's. Okay, so that's the rook, and then we are doing the knight. So for the knight, we're going to grab A7 and 2. And then H7 and 2. So grab 8. There we go. 7. H7. Okay. So we can hook that up here. Hook that up here. And then we'll just change this to knight. Okay, and we're done. And for the bishop, we're going to get A3 and A6. So, the A3, H3, A6, H6. Okay, hook those up. And then we'll change this to the bishop. Next, we're going to do the queen and the king. So for the queen, we are just going to copy this. Let's actually paste 2 of these down here. Let's do a reroute node. We can drag these up here. There we go. Okay, so this one's for the queen. And for the queen, we're just going to get block A4. And then H5. So A4 is going to be white team. And then queen. And then H5 will be the black team and queen. Okay. Last one we got to do is the king. So let's just go ahead and change this to king. We're going to set this to A5 and H4. Okay. Plug those in. And then let's just make sure that this team is the white team. And one more thing we're going to do, we're actually going to create a variable for these. So let's just create a variable white king and set this. And then black king. Okay. We can save and compile that now. We should be done with this. Let's just go ahead and test it out. Press play. And as you can tell, all of our pieces are working correctly. One thing we do want to do though, I believe the knight is spawning backwards, so we're going to fix that. We're just going to jump back into our spawn piece function. And in spawn piece, you can see this rotation right here. We're just going to use a select node, plug in the team index, and if it's the white team, on the Z value, we're just going to go ahead and plug in 180. We can save, compile this. Now if we go back, launch the game, you can see that our knights are facing the right way. The last thing that we're going to do is set up piece selection. So to do that, we're just going to jump into our piece parent. Go ahead and open that up. Okay. And inside of our piece parent, we want to add a call to our mouse clicked event that we created in our player controller. So we can just go ahead and get player controller, cast to chess PC, and then we're going to bind event to mouse clicked. Okay. Now we can drag over this event, add event, custom event. We'll name this on mouse clicked. And for on mouse clicked, all we're going to do is we are going to create a new variable. Name this is selected. And then we're going to set this to a rep notify. And on mouse clicked, set selected to false. Okay. We can go ahead and save and compile now. And we're going to jump into this on rep is selected. And on rep is selected, what we're going to do is grab our dynamic material reference, set scalar parameter value, and then highlighted, I believe was the name of what we had. Go ahead and check in the parent stone. Yep, highlighted. So we can just copy this and paste it into here. Okay. And then the value, we're just going to do a select node. And is selected, let's plug in. Is selected as false, we'll leave it 0. Is selected as true, we'll set to 1. Okay. So next, what we're going to do is we are going to go to our event graph, and we're going to create a new event. Actor on clicked. And let's just go ahead and print, make sure this is working. We can press play now. And as you can tell, when we click on our actors, we are getting our print string, which is perfect. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we are going to do a short delay. Going to set is selected to true. Okay. And then we're going to save and compile. And we should be able to press play. And as you can tell, our pieces are highlighting when we click on them. That's working perfectly. The one final thing we're going to do, we're just going to jump into our chessboard. We're going to create a new function called getCurrentTeam. We'll make this a pure function. And then we're going to get our player ref, get team, and then return that. We can go ahead and save and compile now. Jump back into our piece parent, and on actor clicked, we are going to get our board reference, get current team, and then if the current team is equal to the team of the piece, then we will allow it to be selected. Save and compile. Now we can press play, click on it, and if we click on the other team, as you can tell, it's no longer highlighting. That's the end of this video. I hope you learned something new. In the next video, we'll be setting up the initial base logic for pathfinding, so stay tuned.